Hi, Caline.
Hi, Maria.
I'm so grateful, by the way, that we managed to do this. That one, you extended your flight because
Me too.
we were not going to coincide in Dubai
I
at the
know.
same time.
We were meant to meet.
We were meant to meet. You match the furniture, so it's
Yes.
perfect.
Not on purpose, but love
Not
it.
on purpose. So today I have Caline, and Caline is a multi-passionate being with so many different purposes in life. And she is a human design reader, a journalist, a crystal energy healer. And I know I'm missing a fourth one right now that you shared.
Human design coach.
A human design coach.
Same.
Oh, no, a coach, you said,
Yes.
because I said human design reader.
Exactly.
So a coach. Okay, nice. And today we're going to talk about human design. So
Yes.
I'm really grateful for that because for me, human design came into my life at a time where I was really searching for more information about myself. Let's put it that way.
That's what it does best.
Right? How did you come to discover human design?
So someone once told me, have you heard about human design? And I just remember thinking, no, but of course I'm a manifesting generator. So anytime someone tells me something I feel is interesting for me, I will dive deep into it. And so I started diving deep into it. There wasn't a lot of information back then. It was around 2020. And then I discovered through Gaia, I found my teacher who had done a couple of interviews, got in touch with him, did a call with him, got completely fascinated by it, and then took his course. And so here I am now.
Here you are now, and you're sharing it with people. So you're based between Dubai and Lisbon. At the
right.
moment, spending more time in Lisbon, I would say, than
Yes.
here.
Yes.
But you lived here for 11 years.
Indeed, yes.
You
I'm
lived here
still a resident here, so it still feels like home, but I've moved, let's say, my base to Lisbon.
Okay, nice. And do you find that there are more and more people interested in human design today than there were like 5 years ago?
Definitely. I mean, especially where I live in Lisbon, it's become a big thing. I mean, the well-being sector is really growing there. And I'm noticing as well, now that I've come back to the Middle East and spending more time here, that it's also become a big topic of conversation. So it's really heartening to see that.
It really is. Every time I go out nowadays and I talk about human design, yes, sometimes people have no idea what it is. And then you have other people that are, oh, I've done a reading. I mean, I met someone a week ago that had done a reading with you, like, I believe 4 years ago already.
exactly, yeah.
So it's so beautiful to see
It's incredible.
that people are interested in this. And before we dive deeper into it, what we wanted to share, we were discussing this earlier, is that human design is a tool, a system that allows you to understand yourself better, but not to put yourself in a box and make it like your religion. Let's put it that
Exactly.
way. Like it's
Definitely.
just a guiding system.
It's a guiding system, exactly. I mean, I always tell people, especially when I do readings, that human design does tend to box a lot because it says you're either this energy type or that profile or whatever. But that, energy, let's say, has taught me in life that you can transcend even your own human design. You can transcend it all. So to take it with a pinch of salt and to be very fluid with it.
I love that. And I feel like it's super important because when I first uncovered it and I had my first reading, and we'll go into that a little bit more, I was like, oh my God, like, why am I this type? Why is this my energy? Why does it ebb and flow so much? And why am I called the martyr? Like, there were so many things about my design, and I was not too happy about it, honestly.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be something else. I was like, if I could choose, I'd be this with that, with
The
this
grass
and
is
that.
always greener.
I know. And
Yes.
then I came to really appreciate my design today.
Exactly.
So I feel like before we go into anything else, even to just share a little bit of background on what human design is to begin with. Because I feel like some people listening might not even know, this might be their first introduction to it. So in your own words, what do you feel like human design is?
So the way I usually describe it to people who've never heard about it is that it's a bunch of esoteric systems that come together, old wisdom traditions that come together to tell you who you are consciously and unconsciously at birth. And it gives you this blueprint, basically. It's based on astrology, the Hindu chakra system, I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, science, human genetic coding. There's so much that goes into it. And they all end up speaking the same language, And so I like to call it the first international spiritual language in a way.
I love that. It does. By the way, for me, human design gave me the language that I didn't know I needed in order to better understand myself.
Exactly.
Like, and to give me the permission to then be this version of me, to not try to imitate someone else's path or someone else's way of doing things. And I feel like that's what human design has really offered me, is this gift of being myself.
Yes.
Which is so funny, right? Like,
of
we
course.
needed a permission slip to be ourselves.
It's
but
not a given in
it's
this
not a
life we
given.
were raised in, you know? It's not a given. There's so much conditioning, you know? Everyone says, I always like to use this example of how people call, you know, 2-year-olds, you know, their phase, the terrible twos. But not everyone is the same even at 2, you know? And so the same applies to all of us. We're all different in many ways, but we're all, you know, similar in different ways as well. Like, we're all unique ultimately, and it's all about finding out what that is for you, you know?
I really love that, because it's so true. You know, we're going to talk about energy types, and there are 5 main energy types in human design. And even if you fall into one of these categories, it doesn't mean that you don't experience other things that another energy type experiences, because you have your own unique chart, and
Exactly.
every being has their own unique chart that makes them different to another, regardless whether they fall under the same energy umbrella, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I feel like that was something that was really revealing to me, because you can have a generator that feels very much like a reflector, and a projector that feels like a generator,
Exactly.
and a manifester that feels like a projector. So
Exactly.
it's just very interesting to see that your energy type is just really the first layer of the onion.
Exactly.
And that's usually where we start in a reading. And just before we go into these types, to mention that this is based on your birth details. So
Exactly.
date, time, place.
Yes, exactly. These things are the most important. Of course, not everyone knows them, but you know, you can even sometimes gauge, you know, by testing different hours and talking to the person and seeing what resonates with them. But these are the most important factors. And then, as you said, human design is so intricate. So just saying that all generators are the same or all manifestors are the same is so far from the truth, you know? We can feel a lot more connected to another energy type than someone who is our own, because there are so many layers and facets to every person, you know?
100%. It's interesting, because I've met so many generators. So, you know, you meet all the different energy types after doing this work for a couple of years. I've officially met every kind,
That's
which
amazing.
is so cool. You know,
Yes.
I've done readings for generators, manifesting generators, projectors, all types, whether they're emotional, splenic, ego, mental, like you name it, like they're all
fascinating,
there.
yeah.
And we'll go into this in a bit. And then same with like manifestors and reflectors. I also met 2 people with all of their centers defined.
Wow, I haven't actually experienced that yet.
I have 2,
That's
by the way.
incredible. Wow.
Incredible beings, really, really incredible
An
beings.
intense life.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
like all their centers
Yes,
defined?
That's incredible. Incredible.
I know. I mean, now I'm like speaking gibberish maybe for some people, but we can go into
Yes,
that, like
yes.
what are the centers and all of
Of
that.
course.
But let's start with energy types.
Yes.
The 5 main energy types.
So, I mean, I'll give you a quick summary of each one of them, even though I know you know them. We're saying this for the audience, but generators are all about, you know, they have consistent access to this life force energy. So they can go morning to night. They don't stop unless they collapse or they sleep. And so the most important thing for generators is to do things that they love to do, because it literally spills out of them to other people. You know, they're here to spread that good energy to others, you know? And so if they're not doing things that they love to do, they will feel tired, they will feel drained, and they won't be living in their truth, essentially. So that's the main thing I would describe a generator as in a nutshell. And then manifesting generators, which is what I am myself, is the hybrid of the manifester and the generator. So manifesting generators also have this access to this, you know, continuous life force energy. They can go all day long, but the difference is that they can course correct. The generators tend to have to complete the experience or whatever it is they're doing, even if it's inadequate or unsuitable. It's very hard for them to quit halfway. Manifesting generators can course correct, and this course correction is actually beautiful when you see it live in motion, because it's you really flow through your life. You know, you like something, you do it, you drop it, you move on to the next. And of course we were raised to say, you know, you need to finish everything that you start. You can't just drop something in the middle. Well, that's exactly how we operate, and that's how we operate at our highest potential, I would say. So manifesting generators have that. They can go, they can manifest, they can create, but at the same time, they have the sustainable energy for the most complex and detailed tasks, right? Then if we move on to the manifester, which is what you are yourself, so manifestors, as you also know, they're just 9% of the world's population, so not very widespread. And so their energy sometimes is a bit misunderstood, but they are incredible when they are, they are these catalysts in motion, just being around a manifestor can help you catalyze things in your life and manifest things in your life. And manifestors need nothing and no one but their own drive. I always tell manifestors, if you want peace in your life, just inform the people that you love, the people around you, about what you're planning on doing. You're not asking for permission. Very important to know that, because God forbid should you ask for permission to do anything in your life, but you are simply informing. Otherwise, you leave people in this cloud of dust and they just won't understand why you did that, right? You're not doing it purposefully. You're just doing it to have peace of mind anyway. So that's how I would see manifestors. And then projectors, for me, the guides of the world. I mean, I love all energy types, but I do have a bit of a soft spot for projectors.
By the way, I feel like I have a soft spot for projectors
right?
too.
There's something
about projectors.
The best advice. I mean, I realize my closest friends are projectors. And it's just so wonderful when, first off, you ask them for their advice because they feel wonderful about it. And usually, if it's in alignment with their design and they help you out, I mean, it's a big win-win situation, So they are these quintessential, guides to the world. They are these life observers. They are just here to be spectators, but also to help guide other energy types. Like, I always like to use this analogy that if we're all in a boat, manifesting generators and generators will be rowing and projectors will be at the helm of the boat and they will be directing us as to where to go,
And where are the manifestors?
Manifestors are like running up and down the boat and paddling and
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, manifestors are definitely bringing the fun into the boat.
Okay, we're bringing the fun into the boat.
Manifestors are making the plans.
We decided that we go on the boat.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like that's what we did.
Manifestors make the plans as to where we're going to go and how
we're going on the boat, you guys.
Exactly.
Follow me.
And exactly. This perfect ecosystem of all of us together, right? And then, so that's essentially projectors, and then they don't have access to this consistent life energy. So they have to, nap a lot. They have a smaller battery, but it's a lot more effective. So, in 3 hours, they're as efficient as, let's say, a generator in 12, right? And so that's important to understand about their energy type. And then you have the reflectors, which are these incredibly rare beings, less than 1% of the world's population, completely undefined centers. So their whole chart is white. And they can be either, I mean, at least from my experience, completely conditioned or extremely wise. And ideally, if they are, not conditioned, then they are these incredible mirrors to others. They just, my teacher used to tell me once a month, sit with a reflector and you will see yourself in a mirror and you will see exactly how you are. And, my cousin's a reflector and she used to live in Dubai, and once a month we would sit with each other and she could gauge so well, like where I was at, whether it was emotionally or any other way. And so I really love reflectors, especially because they are such a small portion of the population. So they are highly misunderstood, and in the sense, like, they don't feel seen. They don't understand, if they haven't really done any of this work, they really don't understand what their energy is all about, but they're incredibly vital for all of us at the end of the day. I mean, we all play a vital role for one another.
Definitely, we all have our specific roles to play. That's why understanding how we operate can be so beneficial to the whole. And I love the way that you described all of the energy types. And just to go a little bit deeper with it, it's like, so 70% of the world manifesting generators and generators are these sacral beings because they have their second center from the bottom defined, meaning colored. So if you're looking at your chart right now, if that second center from the bottom is defined, you are either going to be a generator or a manifesting generator. 70% of the world are these sacral beings. And the way that I really look at it is like, your energy is so sacred. So please choose wisely what you want to do and what lights you up. Not everything you say yes to is nourishing to you.
Exactly.
And the more you can be discerning with where to put your energy based on your gut feelings, the more you're going to spill over to others and like a magnet draw things to you without having to do anything. Like that's the beauty about your energy type, is you don't have to force anything to happen. Just keep focusing on what you love.
Exactly.
And then 30% of the world are the manifestors, the projectors, and the reflectors. And their sacrals are always going to be undefined. So all three really do need that rest. Now, of course, a manifestor or a projector that has 3 or 2 of their motor centers defined, they're going to maybe feel it less than somebody that has less of their motor centers defined. So I know I'm talking a little bit about like other things, but just for people to understand that you have differences within the types, but essentially understanding that rest is necessary for you in a way that perhaps 70% of the world don't understand. So I really find that they're the teachers and the guides when it comes to embodying what it looks like to incorporate rest and slowing down in order to make things happen. 100%. And it's not always about being on the go and actually manifesting generators. That's one of your greatest lessons in life, slowing down. Because you move too quickly.
We are the fastest,
You're the fastest energy type.
0 to 100 in 0.5 seconds.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful thing to see you turn something that is still an idea into something that is real. And at the same time, like just slowing it down, because
100%.
things can still happen for you in those spaces where you're not running at like 100 kilometers an hour.
Definitely.
And so I really find that it's nice to like see things as, okay, sacral beings and non-sacral beings, to understand a little bit more about your energy and your energy type. And then you were talking about like the manifestors, and as a manifestor myself, definitely felt very misunderstood for such a long time. And I was operating like 70% of the world. And even till today, when it comes to my career path, I find that I have to keep asking myself, like, okay, how am I going to keep this going? Because the consistency is not going to be there. I have sometimes a whole week where I just need to rest and I can't do much. And people that see me from the outside sometimes might misunderstand my energy and be like, why are you being lazy?
Exactly.
Like, don't be so lazy. Come on, like, do this. And I'm like, am I being lazy? Or am I just honoring where I'm at today?
This is preconditioned beliefs of how we need to be in this life.
Exactly.
Go, go, go.
Exactly. And so what we wanted to talk to you about today is relationships and human design.
Yes.
Because I feel like once you understand not just yourself, but the people that you are with, like in friendships and in love, how much...
It's a game changer.
Right?
Completely. Definitely. I mean, of course, I always tell people, first and foremost, you need to understand yourself. Because without that, the understanding of others will not happen. You know, you will have a skewed lens. So the moment you are able to understand yourself, and a lot of people sometimes come to me, they want to do relationships first. And I always say, I recommend doing individual readings first, so that you both understand truly who you are at your nature, and then go off and do one. It's not a rule of thumb. It's just a recommendation, obviously. But yes, it's very important to know how to interact with other energy types, to understand what you need, what they need, how you responded, how they respond. I think a big one in relationships is also the decision-making process. Some people are lightning fast, others need to wait. And how do you manage that in a relationship when you have big decisions to take together? There's so many factors that come into play, you know, so...
I can think of a million examples, and so that I don't go off too much on a tangent,
it's easy to fall in so many rabbit holes in humans.
It's so easy to fall into rabbit holes. I could be like, okay, like, for example, in my own family, we're 3 different types of decision makers. All of us make our decisions differently. My mom is an emotional decision maker. So for you, if you see that your authority type is emotional, just understand that you are meant to make your decisions with time. So it's like clarity will unfold over time. You will know what to do, not necessarily in the moment, but the day after, because depending on where you're at on your emotional wave, you're going to then feel like, okay, today I'm excited, so I want to do it. But tomorrow you might not be as excited and you don't want to do this thing anymore.
And it's incredible because obviously I'm an emotional authority myself. How convinced you are in every moment.
Okay.
You know, it's incredible. And
interesting.
Yes.
But don't you find that sometimes there is a lack of clarity and there's a lot of like maybiness?
Of course. The way you know that it's fake is because, I mean, fake, quote unquote, is because the high is extremely high and then the low, quote unquote, is extremely low. It doesn't feel very balanced, you know, it doesn't feel like there isn't like the sort of emotional anchor inside of you. You know, it feels very volatile, very hasty. That's how, at least for me, I know to wait, because it's like the excitement, yes, and then the next thing, no, absolutely not. You know, and to be so convinced by two scenarios but by yourself can be extremely confusing, right? So the key in these moments, I always tell every emotional authority, is to wait, because it will balance out eventually. You will reach that emotional plateau.
Exactly, and to come to that point of neutrality before making a decision. And I'll give a very simple example because I've seen this play out. So even when it comes to buying something, if you're an emotional being, you might feel like if you're on a high and you see something that you like and you're like, yes, I want it. But then you really like sit with it. You're like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll come back tomorrow. Yes. I've seen this with a lot of emotional decision makers, is that they'll come back tomorrow and decide that, yes, they want to buy this thing.
Exactly.
Versus like, so my dad is a splenic projector. His decisions are so fast. Yeah. It's like, I saw this, I like this, I buy this. Done.
It's incredible when you witness it. Yeah.
I always share this with people that are splenic projectors or splenic manifestors, because for me, I remember being 9 years old and being so shocked at how my dad just knew things.
That's
and I'm
amazing.
like, I don't know how he knows, but he knows. So it was hard for me to lie to my dad. It was a lot easier to lie to other people. But wow, like I was like, he's an intuitive being. I don't know how he is, but he is. And then when I found out about human design, I'm like, that's how he is, super intuitive.
Makes sense.
But he knows things without knowing why he knows things. And there's no other way to describe it to a splenic decision maker, but that you just know. It's a taste, 100%. It's a smell, it's a sensation.
Exactly.
And to actually make your decisions quickly is totally okay, because you might wake up tomorrow and then change your mind, and your mind will start to rationalize things.
Exactly. And a lot of people say, they tell these splenic authorities that, you know, this is frighteningly rash, your decision-making process, and you should, you know, think about it, when in reality, there's nothing to think about, right?
Exactly.
The mind is only here to support your decisions, not to take them for you. But a lot of times, I mean, my brother is a projector, also splenic, and he has
best combo.
Yeah. Best advice also. However, he also has a defined mind. It's colored in. And so when you have a defined mind, you think a lot, and the mind is quite loud. And because the intuition, the spleen is it's very quiet. It's the quietest of all of them, right? It whispers its decisions almost. Yes. It can be a bit tough, you know, because the mind tends to take over, and pros and cons and all of that stuff that actually doesn't work when you are a splenic. It's all about, you feel it, you do it. That's it. Right.
Yes. So we spoke about emotional, we spoke about splenic. There's also gut feelings. So generators and manifesting generators will either be gut feeling, black and white, or emotional. That's it. Those are their two options. So we're going to talk a little bit about like the gut feelings, because it's very black and white. They're also pretty fast at making decisions. It's, I'm expanded by this, or I'm not.
Exactly.
I'm excited, I'm not. If it's like a maybe, I'm not sure, it's like, just drop it for now. Like, don't even do it.
Wait for more evidence to show up. It could be that the mind is overriding the gut by overthinking, or that, like I said, more evidence needs to show up in your life to then take a decision. But in that moment, that's the beauty about the gut. It's black or white. There is no in between. And I always tell people, like, if your child is a sacral authority, then best to ask them yes or no questions is the best way to get an answer. Not what do you think about, no, like, yes, do you want this? Do you not want this? What do you think about that? You know, like, yes, no, yes, no.
This is super helpful for people that are gut feeling based. It's like, do you want this? Yes or no? Not what do you want for dinner, because you're giving them too many options.
Existential questions.
It's going to be a crisis of some sort.
I don't know.
The
indecision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, no, just give me options. Pick from things.
Much easier. And I always say it's a bit like a muscle with all of them, to be honest. The more you train it, the more the louder it gets, the easier it becomes for you. You know, I've really seen that. Like, for example, with the splenic, you can write down any messages you get to kind of train that muscle and recognize it and tell it that you're there, you're listening. The gut is the same, you know, keep testing different days. The emotional is the same, you know, you just have to practice on the small stuff because it makes it easier for the bigger stuff.
It's so true, and especially because for all of us, regardless of our authority type, we are all meant to tune out the noise in our minds, right? Like, we're not here to make decisions based off of our thoughts. This is true for all energy types, all authority types. And it's really about returning the wisdom back to the body. What is the body indicating? And it's interesting because we all say, like, listen to your gut feelings, but for everyone it's going to be so different.
Yes.
And we can think it's coming from our gut, but for me, for example, I'm an ego manifester. So ego is all about my heart's desires. And I was like, but what does that even mean? Like, what is it to be an ego manifester? So we're pretty rare as well. It's like 2-3% of the world, something like that. Ego manifestors, ego projectors. And it's so crazy, by the way, just thinking about it. I've met 2 people that are ego manifestors with the same exact chart as mine.
No
the
way.
same 3 defined centers.
Wow.
Yes.
Maybe you were born around the same time. Oh, you weren't? Because usually that's what happens. Wow, that's amazing.
I know. There's one girl that I had a reading with, and I'm like, "Are you my twin?"
Yes,
like we literally.
It's so nice though when you meet someone who has a very similar chart to you, right? You feel like it's somewhat of an unspoken twin, and you understand each other in such a deeper way, right?
We developed a friendship out of this because it's like, well, we're so similar in so many ways.
We can help each other a lot.
Ego definition, authority types. It's like, okay, what do we desire? What do we have the capacity to say yes to?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that we want to do, that's for sure. I know this as me. And there's so much I want to do. And it's like, do I have the energy to do it? Yes or no? So one of the things that I did receive growing up a lot is I'm lazy. Because there are things... I did, by the way. I did a lot. And now it's not that I'm lazy. It's, do I want to do this? Do I feel like it's worth it for me to do this and to put my energy into this? Because it could be that it's not.
Exactly.
And
you have a limited amount of reserves to give to.
Yeah, the smallest apparently. And interestingly with this one as well, I find that talking it out helps. So when you talk out what you want to do, this is where I find that the answer comes and I'm then able to make my decisions. So then we have mental projectors.
It's exactly that. It's very similar. It's a sounding board, right? They need to talk at someone. Literally talk at someone, not talk with someone. They just need to talk at someone to hear their thoughts out loud, you know? So you just need to find like that trusted friend, get an environment where you're super comfortable and you feel safe in, and talk at someone, and that you will start to hear the tone of your voice. You will start to see how you react, how the other person reacts. And that helps tremendously in taking your decisions.
Exactly. And I love that. Talk at someone, not talk with someone. And for some of them, they actually need to talk to several different people because depending on who they're around, their voices will sound different.
Exactly.
And it's in the certainty of their voice, then they can make a decision and know what is true for them. I have a very good friend of mine. She's a mental projector. We send each other like 10-minute voice notes, literally. Like our voice notes are so long because for me it helps, and for her it helps her too. Like
it's a win-win.
It's a win-win for the both of us, and it's amazing.
Yes.
And I can hear it in her voice when she's convinced of something, and I know when she's not convinced of something because I can like pick up on it.
Yeah.
And it's so people that are mental projectors, all of them will have 2 defined centers or 3 above the throat. Everything below the throat will be undefined. Exactly. And this is where untangling yourself from other people's energies is important.
Yes. Untangling yourself from all this conditioning, because if someone's an emotional authority, let's say, then this contagious excitement could make an idea sound like the best thing ever, when in reality it might not be right for you, or someone with a defined root could pressure you into doing something that may not be right for you. There are so many ways that you could be conditioned, God forbid, but that's why it's so important to be aware. Because I always tell people, being aware is more than half the job done. You can catch it. Once you catch it, that's it.
Yeah.
The job is done.
Yeah. And I don't want to forget our reflectors, because
Of
our
course.
reflectors
I love
are
my reflectors.
beautiful beings, and I love them so
Yes.
much, and truly unicorns.
Very much so.
And when they're in alignment with what they came here to be, which is to be fluid, to be completely open and receptive to what's like happening around them, they reflect their environment so well. So really here I feel also to advance society, because they can see where the cracks of society
Yes.
are.
100%.
And the way that they make decisions is based on the moon phases.
Yeah, the lunar calendar. So every 29 days, pretty much, they, I always tell people like grab a calendar and on the 29th day mark decision day. Of course, it's not super practical, but it is very helpful, I would say, especially for big decisions. It's best to wait because you discover different parts of your personality throughout the month, and that kind of helps you in taking your decision eventually. And in the meantime, you do research, you Google, you talk to friends, you do all of that stuff. And then you will have the most well-rounded decision once you reach that 29th day, So,
And from this point, I feel like let's talk about relationships, and let's start with our charts and how we affect each other, because I feel like that can already be a good base, and then we'll tackle the other things
definitely
that are undefined in our charts.
Yes.
But so you are an emotional manifesting generator.
Yes, I am. And so, the first thing I look at, because obviously the emotion center is, I would say, the most intense, because it takes over your whole body, right? Your nervous system, all of it, right? Emotions take over everything. And so whenever, one person has their emotions undefined or colored white like you do, and mine is colored in, and I believe in the world we're 50-50, then it's very important. Well, we both, obviously everyone has lessons to learn in this. And let's say for me as an emotional authority, it would be to understand, well, first off, to understand that I will always be cycling through emotional waves throughout my life, the ups and the downs. And the life lesson here is to not allow any emotional wave to take over me, to own me. It's to allow them to pass through me, for me to disengage from them, and that's it, and to learn from that. And also to understand how my moods affect other people, right? So if I'm with you and I'm angry or I'm sad, your body is more prone to taking my emotions on board for yours, and then making you feel like they're your own. And not just that, it will also exacerbate them. And then you get bounced around in my emotional wave, I get bounced around in my emotional wave. We're all bouncing around in this emotional wave, and no one gets helped in the process, essentially. So for you, I would say that the most important part in this whole thing would be to recognize when this happens. And you will feel the emotions rise up in your sacral, and you will know, in your solar plexus. And so you will know, these are not my emotions. Like I said, once you're aware, you know if these are yours or not. The moment you notice, they start to dissipate. And if it's too intense, I always tell people, take some time alone to discharge the emotional energy, because it's true. We have this energetic aura, right? This energetic field that stretches out 3 feet outside our physical body. And anyone who enters that's when our energies mix and match, right? Mix and merge. So for non-emotionals, quote unquote, I would say, it's all about being aware and alert to the emotions that surround you, and not allowing them to also get you bounced around in them. You know what I mean? So every person with that definitely has something to learn.
For sure. And for me, so I'm non-emotional. So the way that I describe my energy type would be very much like cool, calm, collected. On a daily basis, I'm not going through those emotional waves. I experience emotions for sure on my own, depending on what I'm going through, but really it's magnified in the presence of other people. So if I'm around you, like you said, and you're sad, I will feel your sadness and I will magnify your sadness. And this is where practicing emotional hygiene is super important, because otherwise I can go like a sponge picking up on people's emotions all day, every day, and then
Get exhausted.
have zero.
It's draining.
Exactly. It's super draining, by the way. And I used to, and this was a very big lesson for me. So if you are a non-emotional and you are speaking to someone that is emotional, one thing that is super important is actually to ask that person, do you just want space to speak and to just vent your emotions, or do you want advice?
Yes.
Most times
This is excellent.
they just want
Yes.
nothing.
They just
They
wanna
want
vent.
space
Yeah.
to vent and to
100%.
speak. And I learned that, and it saved me so much time and so much energy, because in the past, what I would do is like, I'm trying everything in my power to make you feel better. And I want you to feel good. So I'm going to find all of the different ways to make you feel better.
And sometimes I don't want a solution.
But you don't want the solution.
Exactly.
You just
I just
want
want to talk about it.
You just
I just
want to
want
talk
you
about
to
it.
let my emotions out.
And then you might get angry at me because
Exactly.
you didn't want that advice.
Yes.
So that was something that really helped me understand people. And I have a crazy example of this as well. Like, I was around somebody that was very emotional to the point where I couldn't even eat.
Oh my God.
It was that intense. Like,
very
the
intense.
way that I magnified their emotions was so intense for me that I could not even eat in their presence until they got off the table. And then suddenly it was like this whole weight was lifted off of my shoulders. And I was like, I can breathe again.
That's incredible.
It was amazing. So there was that happened. And another thing that I learned about me being a non-emotional is that if someone likes me, I might like them because they like me, not because I like them myself.
That's interesting.
Yes.
You've experienced this.
I've
then?
experienced
No
this,
way.
and I've
Wow.
spoken to non-emotionals about this, and they've experienced it too. You might think that you are in love with someone or you like someone just because they like you and love you, and you're like in their presence. It feels amazing.
Nobody said life was easy.
But remove yourself from their energy, and you're almost like, wait, do I like this
Do I
person?
actually like them?
I don't
Yeah.
think so. So that one is a good one
That's
to
a
keep
very
in
good
mind.
one, definitely.
Ask yourself separately to the person
100%.
whether you have feelings for that person, because you
Definitely.
might just be with them because they like you.
Exactly, 100%. And even if you have the emotions defined, I mean, sometimes the excitement, like I said, that fake excitement, I mean, it's not fake in itself because you genuinely,
genuinely
feel the
feel it.
excitement, but it's also there's some downtime that comes after that. And in hindsight, when you take a step back and whatever it is, whether it's a person or a situation, a trip, whatever it is, you could be a bit less excited afterwards. That's why, again, the decision-making process is very important, because you do cycle through these incredible highs and then incredible lows, and, you know, to just kind of stay as neutral as possible as you go through them, you know? So
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there is that. And then there was another thing that you influenced me in, and it's your spleen.
yes, the spleen. So mine is defined and yours is undefined. And so usually, so the spleen is fearful by nature, right? So these are where our inbuilt fears are, and that's where they get triggered. At least within the gates that I have gate 57, which in itself has a fear of the future. So what if this, what if that, what if, you know? And then gate 28, the gate of the game player, which has a fear of death. And interestingly enough, I didn't even know that I had this fear of death. It was extremely subconscious until I discovered it one day. But I mean, and dealt with it. But whatever fears that I may have, they're triggered by my intuition, my instincts, you know what I mean? People who are more undefined in the spleen, they're more about the adopted baggage of other people's fears, right? They don't have necessarily a root cause or a rationale, right? So they could also come from an experience or a person from the past. So if we're together and I ever end up going, you know, falling prey to my, oh my God, anxiety about the future, what if this happens, what if that happens, and you're around me, you're more prone to actually feeling those fears. And because you mirror my fears, let's say, you could magnify them as well. And then you could feel like almost not paralyzed, but you could have all these fears and have no real way of processing them because they're not even yours to start with. That makes sense?
It does make sense. And it's also really interesting because we're also talking here about like conditioning. So these are the parts of my chart where I'm conditioned. And if I don't go through the process of releasing these conditionings and becoming aware of, okay, who is me and who is not me, then I can fall prey to this type of energy.
Exactly.
And then it stops me from actually embodying the fullness of who I came here to be.
Exactly.
And that's where it gets a bit tricky. And another thing in terms of like relationships that I've really learned to understand with the spleen and me having it undefined is I can grow very attached to someone that has their spleen defined because your energy makes me feel very protected. And so when it comes to like letting go of a relationship with somebody that has their spleen defined, I can find that a little bit of a hard thing to do because I feel comforted in their presence as well.
You feel good around them, exactly.
I
It's
feel
that
good around
feel
them.
good factor that comes from the spleen. That's
Yes.
exactly that.
So it's super interesting also to learn that. And then so you also have your sacral defined, obviously. I don't.
Of course. The main thing about that one is that you can ride my energy, you can go on, we can go on all day long doing everything we love to do. But if you don't honor your nature and retreat when you need to for your energy type, then you could blow your internal fuse and you could get drained and exhausted, right? And it's hard to catch that one, I feel.
It is a little bit harder because looking back at the last few years, the way that I would see this play out is if I'm out with friends and I'm tapped into their energy and they feel really good and they're happy and stuff, like I can stay with them till the wee hours of the morning. Like I can stay out till 5, 6 a.m. I'm totally fine. But then I get home and I'm having a harder time falling asleep. I don't feel good. I just feel extremely drained the next day in comparison to them. And I always thought that there was something wrong with me. Now that I know that I'm supposed to retreat before I get too tired because I need at least an hour horizontally to release the energies of everybody else.
100%.
That now I feel like I'm a lot more in my power too. I don't need to stay till 5 a.m. anymore. I can leave earlier and be better the next day. And so when you're in a relationship with someone, whether it's friendship or romantic, like to know this, like when you're with a manifesting generator, if we're together and we're going out and you can go on much longer than me.
Exactly.
For you also not to take it personally if I need to leave before you.
You know? I know how manifestors and projectors function and reflectors, of course. But yes, not a lot of people do. And
They'll
so
take it
they will take
personally.
it personally. They will or they will start to try to pressure you.
Yes.
No, and look, and the excitement and there's so much that could go wrong, right? And so that's why it's so important to stick to your guns and know who you are and do not get swayed by anyone because you are the only one who lives in your body. So only you know what you truly need. You need to dance between, I always tell people we are all a bunch of contradictions, kind of,
100%.
Right?
And everyone says that. And I'm like, of course you are. Like, did you think you were not?
Exactly.
Did you think I was not?
We all are. But the key and the name of this game of life, right, is to tap into your body to know when to give into this and when to give into that, to dance between the two. And only you can, dance that dance, let's say, right? So in the end, I mean, those who won't understand, if they don't learn to understand, I mean, that's technically their own problem. But eventually, those who will really care for you and understand, how you operate and who want your well-being will understand, And ultimately, it's all about staying true to your authentic self because there is a big stigma about, obligations and I should do this, especially also for generators, there's a big obligation, like to do things because I must, And so none of this stuff should come into the equation when you decide what is right for you and your body, right? So, yeah.
One thing about, you mentioned authentic self and talking about people that have undefined identities.
Yes.
Because their authentic selves change a lot, right? Like you and I both have our identities defined. So there is perhaps a more consistent way of showing up or showing yourself to the world.
100%.
But somebody that has an undefined identity that is living in the shadows of that, they could almost feel like they're losing themselves in relationships and friendships. Like they don't know who they are. They tend to take the characteristics of the persons that they're dating.
Exactly. 100%. I mean, you and I, because we have the self-center defined, we know who we are, we know where we're headed. We might not know how we're going to get there, but we know we're going to get there, however, But we know who we are and we are consistent in how we are. We're the same person with our family, with our friends, with our colleagues, whatever it may be. Those who have this center undefined, this diamond shaped in the chart, they are social chameleons, right? They reflect to others the truth of who they are because they derive their sense of self from the environment and the people that surround around them. And so the conditioning influence here could be that they would then take on someone else's determination, someone else's purpose, someone else's being. And then they will start to, there are no wrong paths, but let's just say there are all these detours that they end up taking, right? Because maybe you're meant to get inspired by some of that, but maybe that's not necessarily your path. Maybe you're meant to go, follow something else. But that's the main thing I do see with people who have this center undefined, because I always tell them the most important thing is take advice from people who are personally empowered. And that's usually a lot of the times people who have this center defined, because they're more, consistent in how they are. But the thing is, if they take advice from people who are not empowered in that sense, then they start, making all these detours in their life. And so, like I said, there's balance to be had in everything. They're very good at helping others see things in how they are, in their purpose, in their determination. But just most importantly, stick to your path. Don't take on someone else's path just because they feel empowered to you, because you're just trying to copy something you're not,
And also be okay with you showing up differently with different people, and not to like also put yourself in a box where you feel like you have to be the same person all day, every day.
Exactly.
And I mean, by the way, it's crazy that the time is up. Yeah, I'm like, so I know. I feel like I want to talk about one more center, and I don't know which one to pick. I'm like, do we talk about the ego or the root? Because they're both very interesting.
I think the root is more, the ego in relationships, they could compete. The root is an important one because it's pressure, pressure, pressure. What do you prefer?
Let's do the root.
Yeah, love our root.
Because we both have it undefined.
And it's
so we both have our roots undefined. So the first one at the bottom. And the way that this one plays out is?
The way that this one plays out is, so I might be super quick in my life, but in my slow time, that's all about my undefined roots. So we go through life at our own pace. We are unbothered by other people's stress and pressure. Of course, every deadline is triggered in the root. And so we have to make sure that anyone who tells us you have to do this by then, you have to do that by then, we can achieve a lot of things, but we have to do it at our own pace. This is very important. So when you're in a relationship, if one person has it defined, they're more so of an adrenaline junkie, they can handle stress a lot better. They might start telling you, you need to do this by then, you need to do that by then. It will start to feed stress into your system. And you could lose your balance completely and start just feeling stressed that you cannot process. You need time. We need time for the pressure to build in us, for us to do anything. You know what I mean? So we can achieve things, but at our own pace.
I really love that, by the way. And it's to remind people of that too. Like, you're giving me a task right now, I'm going to do it, but at my own pace.
Exactly.
And when you're living in the shadow of this, the way that I've been told how it plays out is like, at the end of the day, I might do things really fast because I picked up on the pressure of everyone all day. I might like brush my teeth fast, wash my face in a really quick way. I'm like, okay, come on, like now I'm like told that like it's time. I'm like, okay, it's like building up in me.
It's good we're ending with this one.
Right? It's like I feel this pressure that I need to be done.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, it really affected me because I would speed up through things, through my dance routine or through my exams, because I'm like, okay, like time. And then now that I'm like a lot more grounded and rooted, I'm like,
exactly.
But then I might show up late.
Yeah, we're major procrastinators.
I might take my time a little bit too much. So it's like you said, everything with what we're sharing is you have to find the balance.
Exactly.
Depending on what your chart is like.
100%.
So, I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we could have talked about like definitions and profile
For
types
days.
and all of the other centers we didn't get to discuss. But I mean, if people are interested, they can book a reading with you and you take them online, in person.
Yes, so they can reach out to me on Instagram, Caline by Nature, and then there's a link that they can book straight with me. I do online, I do in person, based on where I am.
I feel like I need to do a reading with you, and I'd like to offer you a reading just to see how differently we
Yes, I would love to. That would be so interesting. Because everyone interprets it in their own way, but I find it so fascinating.
Exactly. Like we all have like our own languages.
Definitely.
And just to end on this note, like it's meant to empower you and empower your relationships.
Exactly. Your entire life.
Your entire life.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. This was lovely.
It was so lovely, so
Truly.
fast. What? How?
In good company.
In good company.
I
It goes by
know.
this quickly.
This was the fastest I've ever experienced. By
Me
the
too.
way.
I'm like, are we sure it's done? But
But thank you.
thank
This
you
was
so
amazing.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.